Hello folks and welcome back to my channel. Today I have another part of my studio etiquette series. I want to talk to y'all about bringing in outside jewelry to be pierced with. Now most folks are familiar with the process of getting a piercing. You go to a studio, you fill out some paperwork, you let them know what piercing you want to get done, they show you jewelry that'll work for that piercing and work for your anatomy, you pick something out, and you get pierced with it. That's usually how it goes. But what if you already have a piece of jewelry that you want to be pierced with, and you want to bring that into the studio and have them use it? Well, this is one of the big areas of studio etiquette that often gets misunderstood, so I thought I'd go over some of my pointers for that situation and how we can make this an easy process for clients and for piercers. Now when it comes to bringing in your own jewelry to be pierced with, I would say that jewelry tends to fall into two categories. Jewelry that's designed for an initial body piercing and jewelry that isn't. Now note that I didn't say high quality jewelry and low quality jewelry because there's plenty of high quality jewelry that isn't designed for an initial piercing. And this is one of the big issues that I see encountered when it comes to studio etiquette when folks do want to bring their own jewelry. So when we're doing a brand new body piercing, the jewelry is a little bit different than what you might wear in a piercing that's fully healed. It needs to have room for swelling and healing, it needs to be the right size for a new piercing, and it needs to be able to be sterilized. That right off the bat rules out a lot of other jewelry that people have that they might want to wear. In a situation that I encounter quite frequently is clients will come in and say, oh, I have these earrings that are from my grandmother, they're solid gold, they're genuine diamonds, they're beautifully handcrafted, they're incredible quality, I really want to be pierced with them. And they're beautiful, beautiful high quality earrings. But they have butterfly backings that aren't really great for a brand new body piercing and aren't going to be a good idea to heal with. Or they have a setting that appears to be set with adhesive, and if I run it through my autoclave, I could damage or break that setting. Or they have a stone in them that's not safe to be autoclaved. I can't run it through the sterilizer because I risk it breaking. And very often I will have clients get very argumentative even when we try and explain these things to them and say, hey, so here are the reasons why I can't pierce you with this jewelry. It's beautiful jewelry, it's great quality, you're gonna love wearing it once your piercing is fully healed. It's just not safe for me to put in your new piercing today. And I promise you, when we say that to you, we're not just saying it to try and force you to buy a piece of jewelry with us. When possible, I'm totally down to use clients' jewelry. It just has to be safe to go into a new piercing, and it also has to be able to be safely sterilized. The last thing that I want to do is put your family heirloom earrings in my autoclave and break them. I don't want to be liable for that. You don't want to lose your precious. It's just going to be a bad situation all around. So that's one factor. Now, other times clients will bring in existing jewelry that they've worn from other piercings and want to reuse it for their new piercing. And this requires a few things. I'm going to touch more on reprocessing worn jewelry later on in this video, but what I want to talk about is the style of jewelry and where you're going to wear it. For example, if you got your conch pierced with a big 5-gem cluster that filled your conch beautifully and perfectly, and now it's healed and you're wearing a ring, and you come in and you say, okay, I'm ready to get my tragus pierced, I'm going to reuse this piece. Well, that 5-gem cluster is probably too big for me to pierce your tragus with. It's just not going to heal well, it's going to be able to spin around and hang off the sides. It's just going to cause irritation and issues. So it's not a piece that I can safely put in a new tragus piercing, even though it's a high quality safe piece of jewelry and it worked out perfectly for your conch. So it's also really important when we're moving jewelry somewhere else, especially for a new piercing, that it's right for the new piercing we're doing. And while you may have a piece that is, again, great, safe quality, it doesn't really work for the new piercing that we want to do today. And then of course there's just some clients that come in with jewelry that just isn't quality at all. They come from lower quality brands, it's a lower quality material like acrylic or plastic, and as a baseline, I'm not going to put something unsafe in a brand new body piercing. I don't want to do that to you. I don't want to pierce you with something that's going to potentially damage you. I don't want to take liability for piercing you with something low quality. That could cause me to potentially lose my APP membership, lose my licensing in the state, depending on what the piece is. I also just don't want to do a piercing with jewelry that I know is going to cause issues during the healing process or problems, and then of you walking around with this piercing with this terrible quality jewelry in it going, oh, Lynn did this to me. I don't want to do that. So there's a lot of qualifying factors for us to be able to reuse a piece of jewelry, and unfortunately a lot of pieces, whether it's because they're low quality or because they're high quality but they're just not safe to go in the autoclave or not right for the piercing we're doing this time, we can't reuse. If your doctor has to tell you no to using your own jewelry, please be polite and be respectful of that. I promise it's not that we're like trying to take advantage of you or trying to force you to buy more stuff. We just really can't safely use these pieces. We don't want to risk damaging your jewelry. We also don't want to risk damaging our autoclave. I don't want to put something that I'm not sure of the source of into my sterilizer, and if that piece damages the autoclave, if something happens during sterilization, something melts, something breaks, I'm going to be charging you $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to get me a new autoclave and get me a replacement in the meantime. And I don't want to deal with that. You don't want to deal with that. So please know that when we tell you no to these pieces, it's because there's a lot of risk that goes into using outside jewelry. All of this is coming from my perspective, and I've almost always worked in studios that offer reprocessing and will reuse clients' jewelry happily for piercing. If it's the right size, right style, right material for the new piercing we're doing, and reuse it for you, we are all about saving you some money. We are balling on a budget. Like, I think it is so smart and so clever to reuse your pieces. However, another element of studio etiquette I want to mention in this is that not every studio is set up or offers reprocessing. Reprocessing is the process by which we take a piece of jewelry you've already worn, we put it through a series of cleaners, an ultrasonic cleaner, manual hand cleaning, re-sterilization, in order to get it ready to be put back in a new piercing. See, if you've been wearing a piece of jewelry for literally any length of time, it's going to get built up with dead skin cells, dirt and oil, hair products, skincare products, and all of the little nooks and crannies around the piece. It can also develop what's called a biofilm on the surface of the jewelry, especially if it's been worn in an unhealed piercing. So we need to make sure all of that is cleaned off in order for us to reuse it for you. This means that we need to have a dedicated space in the studio designed for reprocessing worn jewelry, and not every studio is set up with that. Not only that, but reprocessing can be pretty time and labor intensive for staff. I've had clients bring in pieces that have taken me 48 or 72 hours to reprocess, with me personally spending an hour or two every shift scrubbing and cleaning and prepping these pieces. Not every studio has the staff or the time to spend all of this time and labor reprocessing one or two pieces of jewelry. If a studio has a smaller staff or just a smaller operation, they might be busy doing other people's piercings, doing inventory, things like that. So some studios just have a blanket no reprocessing policy. They might not have a reprocessing area, they might not be set up for it, or they just might not have the employees or staff to reprocess. If that's the case, it's important to be respectful of your studio's policies. It is unfortunately not just as easy as taking this old piece of jewelry from you, putting it in the sterilizer, and re-piercing it. Reprocessing is a very involved, very complicated system, and if a studio chooses not to or isn't able to offer it, that is totally okay. And then lastly is verification of pieces. So there are huge issues with knockoff jewelry in the body piercing industry. I think there's huge issues with knockoff in every single industry. Many piercers get pretty good at spotting what's from a quality company and what's not over time, but sometimes, man, those knockoffs can be really, really good. So if we aren't 100% sure, or if we can't verify where a piece of jewelry comes from, we may not take the risk to reprocess it and reuse it for all of the reasons I've mentioned above. So if you don't have some way of verifying the jewelry that you bring into us, and we take a look at it and we can't be 100% sure that it's going to be safe for us to pierce you with, that it's not going to break or damage our autoclave, we are going to err on the side of caution and say, hey, I'll put this in for you at your downsize, but I can't put this in to pierce you with. And again, this is just us trying to be cautious and look out for you and your health, look out for our studio, look out for our equipment, our supplies, and also just our reputation. We don't want to do potentially bad piercings with potentially bad jewelry. Now, why I feel like this is a topic that falls under studio etiquette is because I think a lot of folks don't realize the nuance that goes into reprocessing and reusing jewelry, how much work it can be, and that studios need to be set up for it. And I regularly see other piercers come online and talk about how clients have been really rude or gotten really angry with them because they weren't able to reuse a piece of jewelry, or they weren't set up for reprocessing at all and it wasn't a service that they offer. And I wanted to kind of share a little bit about the behind the scenes of reprocessing and that it is a very complicated scenario so that more folks can realize that this is not a very easy, very simple, very quick task, and not every studio is set up to provide it, and that's okay. Now, when it comes to having good studio etiquette with reprocessing, here are my biggest pointers. First of all, check and see if reprocessing is a service that your studio offers. When you go in, ask them or shoot them an email and a message and say, hey, if I have jewelry that is purchased from you or that I can verify quality safe piece, are you able to reprocess it and reuse it if it'll work for certain piercings? If they say no, please be respectful for that, or if they say yes with certain limitations, please be respectful of that as well. And please know that just because a studio offers reprocessing doesn't mean that that means any piece you want to reuse and put somewhere else is going to be reused. Again, if it doesn't meet standards for quality, if it isn't safe for the piercing that we're talking about doing, if it's not the right size or style, we're not going to reprocess it and reuse it for you. My second biggest tip is to remember that any jewelry that's been worn by you needs to be reprocessed in order for us to reuse it. Like I mentioned, that jewelry has dead skin cells, dirt and oils, bacteria, there's stuff we gotta clean off of it. So if you are bringing in a piece to be reprocessed, please bring it in a baggie or a sealed container. If you have old jewelry baggies from the shop, those work perfectly. A Ziploc bag works. I've even had clients take a piece, wrap it up in a tissue or a paper towel and tape it shut so it's secure, or hand it to me in an envelope. Whatever the case may be, that piece is technically considered contaminated. It has your unique bacteria, your unique dead skin cells, hair care, skincare products on it, and in order to keep the studio clean and safe, we don't want those things getting all over the shop. So what we don't want is for you to take your worn piece of jewelry and put it down on the counter or try and hand it to us barehanded. This kind of ties back into my very first studio etiquette series about touching your piercings. And I'm saying this not because I think you're dirty or I think your jewelry is dirty, but you might come in with a piece that you've cleaned and handled well that you feel like is pretty clean, but there might be tiny bits of dried blood or bodily fluids somewhere on the jewelry, and someone else might come in with a piece that has a ton of blood and bodily fluids on it, depending on where it was worn and for how long. So for everyone's safety, we have to assume that every piece of worn jewelry is as contaminated as possible, and we want to try and prevent that contamination from spreading. So bring in your worn jewelry in a sealed bag or sealed container. Leave it in the sealed bag or sealed container. The staff will take it from you and handle everything for reprocessing. If you do accidentally put it down on the counter or handle it barehanded, we're just going to ask you to use some hand sanitizer or wash your hands just to keep the surfaces in the studio safe. And please, again, we're not trying to say that we think you're dirty or anything's wrong. We're just trying to keep a very safe and clean environment. And it will definitely get you brownie points with your piercers to be handling worn pieces with that level of knowledge and care. Clients who come in with like their little organized individual baggies and keep everything in them and just hand them to me, I'm always like, You pay attention, you know what you're doing. Thank you, you're making my job with cleaning a lot easier. So if you're the person who does that and understands that, I love you. Front of house loves you. If you don't do that or haven't done it in the past, it is not a big deal. It happens honestly all the time, but now you know better, so you can do better, and you helping us keep the studio clean just helps us provide a cleaner, safer experience for everyone, so we really, really, really appreciate it. Now, the last thing to understand about reprocessing jewelry with studio etiquette is that we're only going to reprocess jewelry for the same person. So, for example, if you got pierced with a piece and you want to, for example, if you got pierced with a certain piece of jewelry and now your sister wants to get her ear pierced, we are not going to reuse that piece between people. And this is because of something called biofilm. The absolute most basic distillation of this concept, it's a film of bacteria that's unique to your own body that grows on objects that have been in your body for extended periods of time. It's almost like your body's bacteria has its own unique thumbprint, and now that you've been wearing that piece, it's got your thumbprint too. Because of this, we don't want to reuse it for a different person. So yes, it might be a quality piece of jewelry, and it might be the right size and style for your sister, or your mom, or your friend to wear, but it's got your thumbprint on it now, which means that it's yours. So we can reprocess your jewelry for you to reuse, but we're not going to reprocess it for anyone else to reuse, because it just isn't 100% safe. And again, we're not saying that to be rude or to make you buy more jewelry. We're just saying it because we want you to be safe. In general, when it comes to bringing in your own jewelry or re-wearing jewelry, please be respectful of whatever your studio's policies are. I know it can be frustrating, especially if you have a piece that you know is quality, but the studio doesn't offer reprocessing, or one studio you've been to does and your new doesn't, but every single studio is set up differently. Every single studio has a different layout and a different amount of staff, and not everyone is able to offer this service or feels comfortable offering this service. No matter what, please understand that when we say no, we do it because we're thinking about your safety, your health, and your well-being, and also the proper use of all of our equipment, and we just don't want anything to get damaged or go wrong. So if you do get told no, please be respectful and polite and understanding, even if it's a little bit of a bummer. If you have quality jewelry and it's unworn and you can verify it's unworn, like you ordered it from a studio's online store and it's still in a sealed, sterilized pouch, or you have another piercer that can vouch for you, many studios are happy to use brand new unworn jewelry. We don't have to deal with any reprocessing. If we can easily verify it as quality, that's a very simple thing for us to be able to do. But give us a heads up that that's what you're coming in with. Shoot us an email or a message or give us a phone call before you come in. That way we can be prepared for you and have all the details about what we're using, where it came from, and just be 100% sure that it's safe. I hope this video helps you understand some more concepts surrounding studio etiquette, especially when it comes to bringing in your own jewelry or reusing your own jewelry for a new piercing. Thanks for sitting down and chatting today, and I can't wait to sit down and share more piercing education with y'all soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!